Hello. You have been linked to this video because you made an appeal to warlords. In a free society, you're holding the position that without the existence of government forced policing, forced militarization, forced military defense, that the world would just devolve into a group of warlords or a series of warlords, series of gangs and mafias fighting each other for territorial control, as opposed to actually like peaceful freedom, right? So the thing that I point out is the fear with warlords is perfectly understandable. Like I had this fear too when I first started thinking about a free society. Without government to monopolize defense and security and protection services, then we're going to have multiple people competing for defense and security. And we're also going to have people that are just bad actors, the criminals that are going to band together to sort of force their will on the land. The first thing I like to point out is that the state of anarchy, the state of lawlessness already exists now. And I know that at first glance sounds totally incomprehensible and doesn't make any sense because, of course, we have a massive government now. But government doesn't actually exist. This thing called government is an idea that resides inside of people's brains, inside of their minds, right? That's the only place it exists. It's just a bunch of people working together, thinking that they're working for something called government, and think that this thing called government enables them, empowers them, gives them the authority to do things that are superhuman, that they wouldn't have the right to do otherwise. It's this belief that they have this authority because of this entity called government that doesn't actually exist, that most of these people, who are mostly good people, they're not trying to be bad, they want to be good people, they don't want to be thought of as evil, but it's this belief that this authority and that this magical superhuman entity called government that can override consent exists, that they do a lot of this bad stuff. So it's really important to just understand upfront that government does not exist. Government is a concept. It just means a bunch of people working together, usually with authority that no human alive possesses. Because think about, there's a lot of things the government does that no one as an individual would have the right to do. Well, that's a good sign that it's just something made up and it's people doing things that they don't have the right to do. You can't delegate a right to government that you don't yourself possess. That means that anything the government does that you don't have the right to do is an invalid authority because no human alive has it to give it to government. So if government doesn't exist, then the state that we live in right now is one of anarchy, where one specific warlord, one specific mafia has monopolized the entire region. That already happened. The warlord thing already happened. But here's the thing. The thing that enables this mafia to have its monopoly is not that it has the most guns. We know, from Iraq, Afghanistan, the wars they're trying to fight over there, that, the most advanced military in the country has trouble defeating people that are just like insurgents, terroristic insurgents living in their houses or whatever. Like a total amateur guerrilla style resistance gives them a lot of trouble. The U.S. military has been there for how many years now? Like more than half of my life on the planet. They're still trying to win that fight. If people did not have this superstition in government, if this belief in government and the rightful just authority of and in government did not exist, the mafia that is currently in monopoly control of this area would not maintain that monopoly for long. They would be taken down. It is through the belief in the just authority of the government that this mafia has won. If a group of people does not if a gang member came up to you in the street by themselves, let's say, and said, I demand that you give me, 30% of the money in your wallet right now, a lot more people are going to resist and say no and give them the finger than would had they thought that gang member was an IRS agent claiming that you owe them taxes. It's the exact same action taking place. An IRS agent says that you owe them taxes, And if you don't give them taxes, they're going to accost you and jail you and threaten your life. And a gang member points a gun at you and says, if you don't give me your money, I'm going to threaten you, accost you, maybe I'll abduct you and ransom you, maybe I'll just shoot you, whatever. Both people are threatening you if you don't transfer their property to you. So I guess my first point on this, in case I'll toss it to you next, my first point is that we already live in the state of anarchy, except the problem is so many people, most people have this invalid superstition, to use Larkin's word for it. They've got this superstition in their head that the authority of this mafia is just and right. And that is what allows them to exist. If people didn't have that superstition, they would resist in so many ways that it would collapse. And if people had it correct in their heads that no one could have or could have this justified violent authority, then no mafia would be able to exist for long, because it would be so easy for me to just start a company that says, look, anybody threatens you, tries to extort you or make you pay taxes, sign up for our protection service. And, we'll make sure that the leaders of any of those groups don't exist on this planet very long. All right. So to you, Kaysen, that's my first attempt at it.
Your first attempt is excellent because it points out the performative contradiction of the idea that what are people worried about? Is it the fashion? Is it the berets? Is it the cigars? Is it the AK-47s? What is it that people are truly worried about whenever it comes to these warlords? It's the idea that someone's going to come and take my stuff without my consent. They're going to injure me. They're going to hurt me. They're going to hurt my family. They're going to take my stuff. So what's the solution? I think we should have a group of people that can hurt us and take our stuff without recourse. It's the perfect solution. It's like trying to save you get scratched on your hand or something. It's like the solution, light my arm on fire and cut it off. We'll just amputate it. So then that little problem that we were worried about is no longer a problem. Or like the guy that couldn't sleep. Oh man, I heard a story of a guy that couldn't sleep. I think it was on House MD. I think that's where this joke came from. But this guy, he's having a hard time sleeping. He goes in to see the doctor. He's like, man, I'm having a hard time sleeping. I keep sleeping on my arm, and it wakes up and it's numb, and it wakes me up in the middle of the night. It's real bothersome. And the doctor just looks at him in the eyes and goes, "There's always amputation." He's like, "What? Like a knot, like a little muscle or something, like a little fat nodule?" "No, the whole arm. We'll take it off. It will not be a problem anymore. Don't waste my time." So in the same vein, people are concerned about, what's going to happen whenever this monopolization of force goes away. There's going to be all these little monopolizations of force. I think that would be something that could be handled whenever people don't, as you pointed out, whenever people don't believe that it's right, that you don't have a moral obligation to obey. I think Larkin asked a really good question recently on Facebook. It was something to the effect of, is there an instance of, and this is for you, Patrick, is there an instance of a right that an individual has that you can give, or a right that an individual does not have that you can give to a group? Can a property of a group be something that no individual of that group has?
I mean, I don't like the language that people use when they talk about rights, because they talk about them like property, like you can transfer them. So that stupid objection aside, no, like for me to be unable to go to my neighbor's house, put a gun in his head, and point a gun at him and remove money from him is wrong. So if you and I got together and both decided to go to my neighbor's house and point a gun at him to get money, and my neighbor says, "No, I don't want you doing that," and I'm like, "Sorry, man, there's three of us. You said no, and the two of us said yes. So now we have the magical justified authority to threaten your life if you don't give us what we want."
Let's be clear. We're gonna build a road. It's valuable. Okay, he should have did what we asked.
And you're gonna drive on the road, so just cough it up.
How do you not want to get to your school to work on time? Is that what it is?
That's not how morality. That's not how ethics work. Like, the two of us can't get together and invert right and wrong. Just by virtue of outvoting you, we can't make something evil into a good. just doesn't function that way. And so there is no distinction between 3 people voting and still not being able to override consent to 100 people voting. Like my HOA couldn't right now get together and outvote me and suddenly gain the right to cost me to steal my money. Like they just can't do that. And 1,000 people, like there is no difference in the number of people is not a factor. It's not like once you magically hit 1,001 people or 100,001 people, like boom, now you can invert morality. That's not how it works. It's either wrong in all times, in all places, no matter what, or it isn't. It's just basics 101.
But I like being inverted. I usually hear, well, we have it better now than under some random warlord, which I think is similar to saying, whenever you're talking about slavery, well, it's better to be owned by this guy than that guy because this guy beats us less, and that's good. And this guy would have beat us more, so we should be grateful for the glorious imposition that is not being weighed upon us, that our shackles are light and do not wear us down. I just got done listening to Atlas Shrugged. In it, John Galt is talking to Mr. Thompson, who's the head of the state. And Mr. Thompson, things are falling apart. And he goes, hey, John Galt, we really want you to help out our economy. We want you to become the economic dictator of the land. Can you? Oh, spoiler alert, by the way, here we go. And he says, I can give you anything you want. I'm here. You're a businessman. You probably like to make bargains. Let's make a bargain. And John Galt goes, okay, sure. Let's make a bargain. This is not a verbatim thing. This is not how Ayn Rand writes. This is just how I interpret it. Okay, sure. Let's make a deal. I'm always open to a deal. What value do you have to bring to the table? Mr. Thompson then goes, I can print you money, money that I would have to create. I can give you jobs that I would have to restart. I can have people do what you want, people that I have to save from starvation. I think you're forgetting where you are. You can't leave this room without my help. There's armed men outside, and without my permission, they could keep you here forever. You could starve to death in this room. And he goes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Mr. Thompson. You can do that. You do have the power of a gun over me right now. See, John, we can come to an agreement. We can make a deal. No, we can't. You still have nothing to offer me because you cannot offer me my own life. I don't consider the removal of a negative to be payment in full. In the same way, whenever people make the gradation argument of, man, we have it so much better here in the U.S. because of things like the freedom to assemble. As long as it's less than 10, as long as nobody's sneezing out in public. We have freedoms in America. We should be grateful for them because it's so vastly different than what would have been had we lived in Somalia or some other state. I stand on the idea of just the ethical argument of it doesn't matter as far as the gradation. What matters is there's still a property violation happening. People still want to control you and take your stuff without your consent. That's the problem. That's the hill to stand on, because it's not a matter of comparing A to B. It's a matter of comparing A to B to principle.
He says he usually hears that, well, we have it better than now, we have it better now than under some random warlord. 2 things. Number one, I say so often, we for yourself. Like, I'm not part of that we, and you don't get to decide for me based on your future predictions, which is the second thing I wanted to say. If I go to my neighbor's house and I say, I predict that if I don't rob you, my life will be worse than otherwise, and expect that to be some kind of moral justification to rob my neighbor, that is obviously absurd. My future predictions, just like voting, cannot invert morality. It cannot make an evil into good. My personal subjective future predictions have no bearing whatsoever on right and wrong and what I have the right to do to other people. I can predict doom and gloom. I can predict the end of the world. I can predict warlords destroying everything and killing me. It doesn't matter. I don't get to hurt innocent, peaceful people because I predict bad things will happen to me.